Let's have a quick sneak peek at the first 3 swords from the new Windlass Royal Armouries Matt Easton collaboration that are coming out really soon. Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiator. Now this is going to be super quick. There are going to be dedicated videos on each of these swords explaining the historical background, looking at the originals, some detailed photos, and the statistics and everything else of the replicas. But I'm being asked increasingly in comments under videos and in other places, Facebook and other places I function, about when this line's coming out. It's been a long time coming. Product development, when you're basing it on individual swords from a collection like the Royal Armouries, is really complicated. Recording them, obviously taking lots of photographs, going through the prototype stages, getting down all of the little niggling details that you want to get right, and then going through the approval process. It's really quite time consuming and complicated, but we're finally there with the first 3. Now I should explain, the second batch of Royal Armouries Windlass Easton collaboration swords are 6 swords, but we decided to release them in 2 tranches. So this is the first tranche of 3 swords. And this group of 6 is more varied than the first group of 6 that we released, which are still currently available. They're not going to disappear, don't panic, so you can carry on buying those. But these, I decided specifically to look at slightly later period, to move into the Renaissance, and look at actually more difficult swords. And that's one of the reasons that this has taken quite long to get this second group out, is because some of these are much more difficult swords to replicate. So as I say, this is a very quick sneak peek. So first up, we have an absolutely amazing longsword. Now this is a very different type of longsword to the longswords from the first group, which is partly why I chose it, also partly because it's just a beautiful piece, beautiful sword, and it was extremely exciting for me to be able to handle the original in the Royal Armouries. It's an amazing sword. Now the reason it's so different to the first longswords, the first couple of 3 longswords in the first group, is this is it's not a giant 2-hander like one of the ones we did before, but the other 2 normal sized longswords were thrust centric. Very thick, very stiff blades, quite narrow, not great cutters, really designed primarily for armoured fighting. This is an earlier, in a sense, an earlier style of longsword, even if this particular sword actually dates to about 1400, so it's a similar date. But as you can see, it is a broader blade and a thinner blade. It's actually a hexagonal cross section, and it's big. Okay, this is a big blade, but I won't go into more details other than that, other than to say this will be a monstrous cutter, unlike the others. So this is really a cleaving, chopping longsword. Yes, of course you can thrust with it as well, but it has a much more flexible blade. It's nowhere near stiff as the other ones and nowhere near as narrow and pointy. This is a traditional big cut and thrust cleaving longsword. Absolutely gorgeous thing, and I have to say I have trouble putting this thing down. It is an absolutely lovely piece, faithfully reproduced from the original. So second in this new batch of 3 is an arming sword. This is late 15th century, possibly even the beginning of the 16th century. So we're looking at a sword which may possibly have come out of an English church. It was possibly, we don't know, but it's possible from the state of preservation of it that it was over a tomb or an effigy or something like this, but we don't know. So this is a type of sword that can be found all over Europe, particularly popular in England and France. It's a type of sword that's seen on a bunch of effigies and brasses in England, knightly tombs, from about 1450 all the way through to about 1500, even beyond that. It has these beautifully curved quillons with a little sort of escutcheon thing in the middle, terminal knobs at the end there of a very characteristic shape that we had to obviously replicate very closely, a wheel pommel with distinctive features to it. Again, I'll feature that more in the dedicated video, and a Type 18 blade. This is it's not light, it's got quite a lot of authority actually, but it's not a big sword. This is the type of sword that an arming sword that you would typically wear when you're in full harness as a backup weapon to something like a poleaxe, or indeed as a civilian carry if you are a knight and legally able to walk around with a sword. So, beautiful arming sword, very, very happy with how this turned out. This should also make a pretty damn good cutter if sharpened up. Type 18 blade, lovely. And now thinking somewhat outside of the box, and this is the first sword in this group which is really a step away in terms of types from the first batch we did. It's a Cinque Dea, that's right. Now this went through various iterations to get it right. I've got to say that Windlass got the blade right pretty much straight away, but there were various details of the hilt. But we're there now, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'll just show a quick close-up of the hilt. It's got the decorative mosaic pins, and it's also got the real pins there. It's got a concealed tang there. It's got this very characteristic tapered shape of cross. But the real highlight, I think, for most people is the blade of this thing. So this is, Cinque Dea vary in size. They can be dagger-sized or sword-sized. This is a fairly large, it's not that you do get longer ones in fact, but it's, as you can see, it's fairly broad and relatively long. It's about the size of a big gladius, if that's a point of reference. And it's possible that swords of antiquity were the inspiration for these Cinque Dea. So an Italian sword of the end of the 15th and early 16th centuries, so we're really into the 16th century here. And it's got triple fillers down here that morph into double fillers all the way that run to the tip. This is a beautifully handling, quick, nimble thing. It looks incredibly massive, but it moves absolutely incredibly. So I think that is possibly going to be on your Christmas wish list for lots of you. That is an absolutely incredible sword, and as far as I know, there are no other people mass manufacturing an accurate Cinque Dea even close to this. So really a market first, I think, which is pretty exciting. Anyway, that was the quick sneak peek of the first 3 swords coming from the new batch of the Royal Armouries Windlass line, developed by me as well, and hopefully you will follow this when these go up for sale. They're in production at the moment, and I'll give you more details when I can. And obviously there will be dedicated videos on each of these, their background, their history, and so on and so forth in the future. Thanks for watching. Cheers, folks.